Good evening. Tonight, we examine one of the most disturbing and debated figures in early American history. Her name was Hannah Duston. To some, she was a victim who survived the unimaginable. To others, she was a killer whose actions crossed a moral boundary. Her story includes abduction, the death of a newborn child, a violent escape, and an act so extreme that it continues to divide historians more than 3 centuries later. This is not a simple tale of heroism, nor is it easily dismissed as brutality. This is the story of how violence became legend, how trauma became justification, and how a single night in 1697 helped shape the mythology of American expansion. Tonight, we investigate the case of Hannah Duston. Historical background: a land at war. Tuakan 7 Sakko. To understand Hannah Duston, we must first understand her world. Late 17th century New England was a frontier defined by fear. English colonial settlements expanded steadily into indigenous lands, bringing conflict, displacement, and war. By the 1690s, this tension had erupted into King William's War, a brutal struggle between English colonists and French-aligned native tribes, including the Abenaki. Raids were common, villages were burned, captives were taken. Violence was not an exception. It was policy. It was in this climate of constant danger that Hannah Duston lived in the frontier town of Haverhill, Massachusetts. Who was Hannah Duston? 7-11 Bao. Hannah Duston was born in 1657. She married Thomas Duston and bore multiple children. By 1697, she was a mother of several, living a hard colonial life marked by labor, childbirth, and insecurity. On March 15, 1697, Hannah Duston gave birth to a daughter named Martha. 6 days later, her world collapsed. The raid on Haverhill, 11 now, 16 Wa. At dawn on March 15, 1697, Abenaki warriors raided Haverhill. Houses were set ablaze. Settlers were killed. By the time the raid ended, 27 colonists were dead, and 13 were taken captive. Among the captives were Hannah Duston, her newborn infant, and her nurse, Mary Neff. The march north began immediately, and according to later accounts, it was during this forced march that tragedy struck. The death of the infant, 16 Tau 20 Kolkiu. Historical accounts, particularly those popularized later, state that Hannah Duston's newborn daughter was killed shortly after the march began. The method described as brutal, the child's head smashed against a tree. It is impossible to verify this detail independently. No Abenaki account survives to confirm or deny it. But this moment becomes the emotional core of the story told afterward. A mother, fresh from childbirth, watching her infant die. This detail would later serve as justification for everything that followed. But historians caution us. This version comes primarily from Puritan sources, not neutral observers. The captivity, 20 Hal 26 Dower, Hannah Duston and Mary Neff, were forced to march roughly 100 miles north. Along the way, they were joined by another captive, a 14-year-old boy named Samuel Leonardson. Eventually, the group reached an island in the Merrimack River near what is now Boscawen, New Hampshire. Here, the captives were held by 12 Abenaki individuals, men, women, and children. What happened next would become one of the most controversial acts in American colonial history. The night of the escape, 26 Wacker 33 Wards. On the night of April 30th, 1697, while their captors slept, Hannah Duston, Mary Neff, and Samuel Leonardson made a decision. They took hatchets. They attacked. By morning, 10 of the 12 captors were dead. Among the dead were men, women, and 6 children. 2 captors survived. 1 escaped, and 1 was left behind. The captives fled in a canoe. This was not a chaotic escape. It was deliberate, and it did not end there. The scalping, 33-37 Doug. After fleeing, Hannah Duston reportedly insisted on returning to the island. Her purpose was clear. She scalped the dead. Why? Because colonial authorities required proof to award compensation. Scalps were currency. Violence had paperwork. The group then traveled south, eventually reaching safety. What awaited Hannah Duston in Boston was not condemnation. It was reward. Bounty and celebrity, 37 so, 41 so. The Massachusetts General Court awarded Hannah Duston £25. Mary Neff and Samuel Leonardson shared another £25. The story spread quickly. Puritan minister Cotton Mather published her account, framing Duston as an instrument of divine justice. Her violence was not questioned. It was celebrated. She became a symbol, not of survival alone, but of righteous vengeance. From history to myth, 41 size, 46 size. In the 19th century, Hannah Duston's story was revived. As America expanded westward, her actions were reframed. Writers like Nathaniel Hawthorne, Henry David Thoreau, and John Greenleaf Whittier used her story to justify frontier violence. Statues followed. In 1874, a granite statue in Boscawen depicted her holding a bundle of scalps. In 1879, a bronze statue in Haverhill showed her with a hatchet. She became the first American woman honored with a public statue. But whose story was being told and whose was erased? The questions history cannot answer, 46 by 52. Was Hannah Duston a victim of unimaginable trauma, or was she a participant in the same cycle of violence that defined colonial expansion? Did she act in desperation or with calculated intent? Were the children she killed combatants in any sense? History offers no verdict. What we have is a story told by victors, retold by ministers, and immortalized in stone. Hannah Duston died sometime around 1736, quietly, without public reflection. But her legacy lives on, unsettling, unresolved, and deeply divided. Tonight, her story reminds us that history does not only record events. It chooses heroes, and sometimes those choices reveal more about the storytellers than the truth itself. Good evening.